All right, welcome back, and we'll start our next session, which is from Mumbai chapter on Be Customer Centric with Test First Development by Mamata Raute. She's an agile coach at Accenture. But before moving on to the session, I would like to thank our founding sponsor, Innovation Roots, which is a leading consulting and training service provider helping organizations to achieve business agility and beyond. It is one of the leaders and pioneers of niche publishing services and well known for content collaboration with global thought leaders, authors, and creators. For more information, visit www.innovationroots.com. I also thank our sponsor Agile, which is a product offering from Tata Consultancy Services Limited. It's the purely cloud-based enterprise agile planning tool along with DevOps capabilities. Enterprise can use Agile to adopt agile practices for scale across multiple Scrum and Kanban teams using enterprise scaling frameworks such as SAFe, Disciplined Agile, Less, and more. You can try out Agile for free up to 20 users for 30 days by signing up at agile.io or reach out to us for any inquiries or exclusive product demo. Check out the Agile page on Agile Network India website for more information. Here are some do's and don'ts for the participants. Join the events 5 minutes before the start time. Use high quality speakers or headphones for better sound quality. Please keep your microphones muted and videos disabled as this may cause disturbance and bandwidth issue. Questions will be taken via the chat box. I request all the participants to put their questions in the chat box. At the end of the session, the facilitator or the moderator will help and read out few questions to the speaker as per the time available. I request all the participants to fill in the feedback forms after the event to help us understand more about the event management. We appreciate your cooperation. With this, we'll start our next session of the day. I request Amo to come on my microphone and camera.
Thank you, Nisha. So good evening, everyone. On the behalf of Agile Network India Mumbai chapter, I'm welcoming all for this today's session, which is the customer centric with the test first driven development approach. So with me, our speaker is there, Mamata Raute. She's having more than 20 plus years of work experience in IT, and she's currently working as an agile coach in Accenture. With respect to my experience, I do have more than 2 decades of work experience in IT, working as a senior manager here in Mumbai in one of the IT organization. With respect to the today's topic, wherein we are trying to cover the what is being the customer centricities, how test first driven development, also the other aspects of BDD, all those aspects, how it can able to achieve our customer centricity, basically how it will give a more productivity towards achieving the organization's goal. So with this introduction, I will hand it over to Mamta.
Good afternoon, everyone. After a long day today, now we are here with the next topic, be customer centric with test driven development. So I will give a quick introduction. So I'm Agile coach, currently working as technical Agile coach too, where I'm helping teams to move towards technical agility by facilitating various workshops for them on test first practices like TDD, BDD, and helping them to move towards technical agility to achieve building quality in their development. So apart from doing process coaching, I also do the technical coaching on XP practices for the team. So today's topic is be customer centric with test first development. So quickly see what we are going to have as highlights for today. So we're first going to see what is customer centric and how to measure customer centricity. Then we are also going to see what's the reality and how we are going to address it with test first development. Then we will see what PDD is and how we have applied PDD in our practices. Then what TDD is and how we apply TDD and the best practices towards it, and how PDD and TDD both complement each other. So now let's start with our what exactly customer centricity means. So by definition also, if we see when any company sees customer experience as absolutely core to what they do, right, then we can say the company is having customer centric culture. And how to be customer centric? If you see, like every company's greatest assets are their customers only, and without customers, we cannot have any company. Customer centricity is required because it helps us to build trust and loyalty of your customers. Even it gives you solid reputation, a good word of mouth so that you can get more customers and you can attract more business. So when you want to be customer centric, you should always think about what customers need, right? What exactly they want, and to satisfy their needs, we should build the right product for them. And if we really want to measure if we are truly customer centric or not, there are various metrics available. So I'm just going to talk about few important metrics over here. If we really want to measure if we are truly customer centric, so one of them is customer lifetime value, and which measures how much profit your customer will generate during their relationship with your company. And these metrics usually we calculate when we have a long-term relationship with any customer. So when they start first time paying for our product or a service, till the time they end the relationship with us, we can measure CLV value, that is customer lifetime value, and we simply have to deduct our acquisition cost out of it. And if we are having good relationship, our CLV improves. Another metric is customer satisfaction, that is CSAT. It gives you the clear view of how customers take the experience of your brand or your products or services. We calculate it mostly, it is a transaction matrix. So whenever we have any type of transaction with customer, like you have recent service call or recent purchase, then we have a survey and we take some rating of the scale from the customer, and based on that we can measure our CSAT value. Next metric is customer churn rate. Churn rate, it tells that how many of our customers have stopped using our services. So always all companies strive to have a minimum churn rate. So if you are able to retain your customers for a longer time, obviously you are going to have a less churn rate. And why companies are focusing on reducing churn rate is because it is very difficult to acquire or find a new customer. You need to spend a huge amount of money, promotions, discounts, so many offers if you really want to win a new customer. So mostly companies invest more in establishing long-term relationship with their existing customers so that they can also increase their CLV. Plus, they also try to acquire new customers too. Now, this is the picture, right, where companies, we say companies are customer centric, but what's the reality is. So one of the survey we got from this, one of the LinkedIn article where the survey was conducted from 2002 to 2014 for 12 years of data based on some polls. We found that there is a major service delivery gap. The companies are claiming that yes, we are giving above, you can say above average customer experience, and they think that our customers also believe that we are giving this experience, that percentage is minimal, right? If you say like some 12 to 13% customers believe there is a service delivery gap, but in reality, the actual customers who believe that their companies are giving them above average product is like even lesser percentage than that. So service delivery gap is more than that, that is 69%. Now, why this happened? When we are also working as agile coach or even agile technical coach for various accounts, various projects and teams, we found these major problems are there. And when we drill down, we found the issues mostly are happening because the team which is working to build that particular product, the core team is not having a business knowledge. They are not understanding business correctly. The bigger picture is not known to them because they are not part of gathering those requirements. The vision is not discussed with them. The vision is not shared with them. Due to which, what happens? The product which they are building is not as per the customer expectation, having many flaws, many issues, many requirement gaps. Due to that, product becomes sour because it is having so many bugs, and eventually customer lose the trust. So how we are going to address these issues? So for that, we thought about, let's see where exactly the problem is. The problem we found, it is usually happening due to this traditional V model, which is delaying the feedback. So if we are testing something at the later stage after doing development or after completing the story or after completing the feature, we are exploring issues at the later stage, which delays your feedback, and it also increases cost of fixing the issue. That's why we want to shift left to get early feedback. to fail fast, fail early, fail safe. So more early you find the feedback, get the feedback and find the issues, the cost of failure is less. And for that, to address this thing, to move shift left, the best solution or best approach we found is a test first development and a behavior driven development. So test driven development and behavior driven development, these are the test first approaches. So now we've explored them, we started working on those approaches and it benefited us. So let's see what exactly that is. So we are going to first see what exactly behavior driven development is. It was invented in some started like in 2006 when Dan North was trying to train his team, or you can say coach his team on test driven development approaches. And he struggled on that because team was having showing some resistance on that. The programmers, or you can say that team used to think, if we are programmers, we are developers, why should we do testing? And testing team thought, if programmers are only going to do all the testing, then what we are going to do? So they were thinking it from the test perspective, not from the outcome perspective. So to imbibe that practice into them, he started talking in terms of behavior. So let's discuss what behavior customer wants, what exactly is their expectation, and let's try to build a software accordingly. And slowly it became a framework, behavior-driven development. Even before this, 2 years back, when Eric Evan wrote a book called Domain-Driven Design in 2004, he talked about something called as domain-specific language. Now, what that domain-specific language is, it is a way for teams to talk about requirements and a test using the same terms as the end users use. So this makes us easy, right? It makes our conversation more easy between technical and the non-technical users, like in order to uncover the ambiguities or the misunderstandings of the requirements before developer even starts design or writing the code. So it helps us everyone to bring on the same page, understand the same thing in the same type of language. So behavior driven development is a methodology, we can say, which is enforcing the teams to think about the outcome first, right? What outcome our customer need. And based on that, they are going to design the product. And then once they understand the outcome, then it becomes easy so that there is no requirement gap. For that, we are going to explore something called as Gherkin language. So in Gherkin, we write some scenarios in the behavior-driven development, which describe nothing else but the customer interaction and the outcome due to that interaction. And it has some promise to deliver that feature value, right? We are focusing on what exactly value we are going to deliver to that customer through that interaction, and it drives that collaboration and also a promise to commit that business value. So automatically our teams becomes customer centric because they are thinking from the customer perspective. So how this happens? Here we are bringing the team together, and collaboration is key in any behavior-driven development approach. Without collaboration, we cannot succeed in BDD. So we want to collaboratively discuss the requirement, reduce communication gap between business and IT. So you must have heard something about like three amigos meeting. Here, three amigos is a term where not the three people, but like product owner, developer, programmers, testers, they all come together. They discuss the requirement, maybe the product goal or the outcome which is expected, drill down into the feature, then again drill down further to the story, and then we come up with a scenario in the acceptance test, right? What all type of scenarios comprise of that particular user story that is discussed and documented. But here we are documenting in a plain English like statement by using Gherkin language. And Gherkin supports some 70 spoken languages in the world. So by default, it supports in English, but you can convert it into any spoken language. So it is having some specific format and some 11 to 12 keywords, very easy to understand and remember. And by using those in a specific structure, we document each and every scenario for particular user story. And how we do that, we discuss, we collaborate. Testers also ask questions. What will happen if this happens? What outcome you expect if this transaction happens? So we try to uncover all the possibilities and what are the expected outcomes out of it and document in this format by using something called as example mapping technique, or it is also called as specification by example, where while documenting those requirements in a plain English-like statement, we are also using some concrete examples over here. So let's take example here. We are talking about a feature called user trade stock and a user story. As a user, I should be able to sell my stocks online. This is one of the user story in that feature. Now in that user story, we can uncover many possible scenarios. So this is one of the scenario we are writing in a Gharkin language. This comes out of the collaboration and discussion. So what we are writing, a first scenario, user requests a sell before close of trading. So we have a you can say three parts into it, given, when and then. And you can combine multiple given by using and keyword. You can combine multiple then by using and keyword. And when is the action which you are going to do. So given is the precondition which says like given I have 100 shares of Microsoft stock and I have 150 shares of Apple stock and the time is before close of trading. So this is my precondition. Now when I have this, when as a user I ask to sell 20 shares of Microsoft stock, then what outcome I expect? Then I should have 80 shares of Microsoft stock left with me and I should have 150 shares of Apple stock and a sale order for 20 shares of Microsoft stock should have been executed. So here we are telling what outcome is expected. This is very much clear. Even technical folks will understand. Non-technical folks will also understand. And the data points when you see here, the name Microsoft, the quantity 100, 150, Apple, all this become a test data. These are the concrete examples which you are used. This becomes test data for the testers. Based on that, they can document their scenarios and it can become test data for the developers or programmers on which basis they can write their unit test cases where they know what input they have to pass. And outcome is very predictable over here. So that's what BDD is. And it gives predictability, requirement clarity, and quality because you don't have minimal requirement gaps over here. And collaboration is the key. If you have culture of working in silos, you cannot succeed in BDD. So collaboration is the key over here. Now this is what BDD is. So when we applied BDD, how we started, when we start coaching the teams, we start from the collaboration practice only, right? From the backlog refinement sessions where we bring them together. Everyone brings together. It's not like only senior folks are going to talk. Everyone in the team is going to join. We drill down the requirement and we come up with feature and story. We talk about scenarios and every line in this scenario becomes a step. It is an actual step which gets executed and which will uncover the behavior of the end user. So if you see, every feature comprised of the story, every story comprised of the scenarios. And when we document this, when we have the scenario and the steps into it, we leverage a tool called Cucumber because our team was working on Java, but there are various other tools like SpecFlow, Behave, which you can use to automate if you are using different programming languages. So by using Cucumber, we automated these steps. So the beauty of this Gherkin is it gives you requirement in a plain English-like statements, but those plain English-like statements can be automated. So Cucumber converts them into step definition. It gives a skeleton of the methods and the data which you have used here, the examples, it becomes a parameter which acts as a test data for you. And here the team is going to write the logic to validate this behavior. They can either validate this behavior on the UI level or they can validate at UI -1 layer, that is at the API level. They can do accordingly. Here we are validating the behavior. So I do this thing, then I do this thing, then I expect this thing. Now, when they first time write it and we automate it, when we run this feature file, it is going to fail because that particular functionality is not yet implemented. So now it is going to drive our development. Then your team is going to do development design. They are going to write the code which satisfy that particular scenario. Once they complete all the scenarios pass in that story, then the stories they pass and all the stories and all the scenarios from that feature file gets executed successfully. When we have implemented it, your feature test also pass. And you can get a nice report like in Cucumber, there are various type of reports available. You can just share that report with your business. This is what the feature file we had agreed with, which you had signed off. And this is what we have built. And now all the scenarios expected are now passing. That's how we talk about it, right? So development teams is aware what they are going to build and what outcome is expected. So entire intention to build is thinking from the outcome perspective, from the end user perspective. So when we start applying BDD, it was not like straightforward that team immediately started. It's challenge to bring them together, right? To imbibe that collaborative practice into them, and also to add those skills for them. You may always not get any greenfield project. You may have some existing application which is not following all these techniques. So we started addressing it from refinement session with three amigos. We collaboratively documented the requirement where each acceptance criteria and user stories. We wrote multiple scenarios into that by using tools like Jira, Confluence, all these things. Then those scenarios become input for our testing team. On that basis, they wrote their manual test cases initially to begin with, and our development team also started coding based on those scenarios. But doing it manually was not adding value because it is not giving faster feedback. We have to automate it. That's why we automated it by applying tools like Cucumber. Here, developers aligned it, but after automating it, what happens is step definitions are generated. In one of our project, those step definitions were automated by using Selenium because it was verified at a UI level. So even testers can also do that. In one of the projects, we did it by validating at the API level. So developers are writing the scripts just to validate at the API level by invoking that API. But when it is going to pass, when that particular API or a code is built, and that's how we started. And when we were discussing some new requirements about any existing feature, when we are adding some enhancement to the feature, we also started documenting the existing features things also in a given LinkedIn format. So slowly and eventually, our existing code, or you can say the legacy code or legacy codes features, that also we converted into this given LinkedIn format in feature files. And we started automating those scenarios too, right? The existing feature scenarios too. It took some time. We had to plan some bandwidth and capacity for that. But eventually, our entire legacy feature was automated with this Cucumber. And because of that, team became so much comfortable to add new requirements because they know now outcome is more predictable and everyone is on same page and they could see the benefit of it because we saw considerable reduction in the effects which we used to get later stage because of issues in the requirement understanding. Now we had zero defects because of gap in understanding of the requirement, because everyone is now known what exactly is asked for, what is the bigger picture, and how customer expects our product to work. And as it was done based on the outcome base, we could achieve that. Now how we did it when we started coding on it, that was part where we come up with the requirement in a scenario format and then we drill down to write the development code. So for that we followed test driven development. Now what test driven development is? It is originated in 1990, just earlier, even it is older than your behavior driven development. And as I mentioned, behavior driven development is based on TDD only. So TDD is a technique where we are building software that guides development by writing the test. So what we do exactly in TDD, we are going to write a test, one test at a time, to test a particular scenario. Now we are aware what scenarios we have to test. To test a particular scenario and to execute that scenario, we write some code. So to drive that particular code, we write a test and we have assertions into that test, which is going to verify if I do this thing, then I should get this output simply. Then this test is going to fail. It is going to be read in the beginning. Why? Because the code is not yet written. We are writing the test first, not the code. Then what we do, we are going to add enough code just to satisfy that test. Only minimal code which will satisfy only that test, not any extra gold plating, nothing more than that. And then we again run the test becomes green. It becomes green, then we go ahead and add another test for same scenario or maybe new scenario. For each scenario, we can come up with different possible tests for the different edge cases. Then we add another test case, it also fails. Then to make it pass, we add enough logic to satisfy that particular test. Again run it, the test pass. while doing all this cycle for all the test cases, we also did refactoring because we realized while adding the code, our code is getting messy. There were some duplicate blocks. I can beautify my code. I can apply some clean code principles. Now, this all the practice gave more confidence to our team to refactor this code. Why? Because we already had the test written for it. Now, when we already have the test written for it, the test become a safety net for us. So even if we mess up anything while doing refactoring, even if I break any code, what happens? Immediately my test case is going to fail. I'm getting immediate feedback because you're shifting left over here. And you understand what exactly failed, and immediately developers go and fix that particular code, again rerun all the test cases to make until the test cases are green. It gives us confidence. Yes, I know even if I break anything, my test cases are there. They are going to make enough noise and they are going to tell me what failed. So this gave more confidence to refactor the code. And that's why the development become enjoyable for the team, right? So it gives good design also. This is one of the another outcome of doing test driven development, because we're writing based on the outcome and we are writing a code which are going to test. So you're writing testable code, so obviously you come up with a better design, and you will get lesser defects because you are exploring, or I can say you are identifying maximum defects at the early stage, that is build stage only. So any code level or logic level defects will not be found at the later stage at the integration level or the regression level. On production level, just not possible because we are trying to find each and every issue at the build level, because we are adding tests for first and then we are adding the code. Because of that, obviously, code coverage is automatically achieved. Better quality of code, lesser time. In lesser time, I will not say lesser time in development, but lesser time is in the long run where we reduce the number of bugs. Initially, development will take time. Obviously, because team is having learning curve, they're adopting new practices. Slowly, their speed increases. They adopt to this culture and practice. Initially, it will take more time. But what happens when they cover their code with this test, as there are minimal defects found later, the amount of time the team used to spend on debugging the issues and fixing the defects, that gets considerably reduced. Number of defects is reduced, so we save that much time. And because of that, team can focus more to deliver the value. Now, if you see, one of the another outcome of doing test-driven development is documentation. Your test become a nice documentation for your entire development team. How? Because how we guide the team, how they should write the test. They should not name the test like test 1, test 2, test 3. No. But the test should tell, the name should tell what outcome I'm expecting, what behavior I'm doing into that. So we use plain English like language to write the test name. There is no limit on the length of it, but we have followed this best practices over here. If you see, this is the test which is aligning to that scenario. We are saying should return stock quantity for given stock name. So just by reading the name of my method of the test, I will understand I'm expecting quantity of the stock for the given stock name. That is the only purpose of this test. So this test is calling the service in which I'm passing the name of the stock, and it should give me the quantity and what is the expected amount I'm expecting. If I'm getting same, then I will say asset equal, my test will pass. So test should invoke the code, it should assert the code, and it should give me result. Nothing like that. So initially it will fail because we don't have the service build the code written. Then we add the enough logic, then we again run it, my test will become green. So this is how we do the test-driven development. Then again, we can come up with another scenario, some negative scenario we think about, where if I pass invalid stock name, then what should I get? Then you can write, again you do collaboration there, you can ask this question to customers, what should happen when I pass some negative, some invalid stock name? They will say, just give a negative, give some zero number, or they may say, okay, you should throw exception. So based on that, we can write our test. So here I'm expecting I should get zero stock quantity. If I pass invalid stock name, then I should get the quantity as zero. That's what I'm asserting. This is the expected and this is the actual, which I'm getting from my code. This is how we write the test cases. So when you do test-driven development, always we focus on write one test at a time, enough code to satisfy the test, keep on refactoring till you have a clean code. When we started doing test-driven development in our projects, when we were coaching the teams, we did some discovery initially, right? But to understand the pain points of the team, what are the issues they are facing. We found in spite of having some tests, they were having many issues in the code. They were having the defects which they were exploring in the regression test. Then we actually deep dived into the code of their team to find out what's the problem, right? Even if they are having tests, then why they are having these issues. Many projects were not even having the tests, some were having the tests. So the problems where we saw the tests were written, but tests were not good. They are not of good quality. Many teams write tests and they are validating more than one scenarios in one test. So they are having multiple asserts into it. So there are many reasons for one test to fail. But best practice is a test should have only one reason to fail. Otherwise, you will not come to know why my test has failed, where exactly the code broke. So we advise team, your test should have only one reason to fail. Then we also saw many teams have not written asserts. Even without writing asserts, also your test will pass. That is one of the flaw of your test, right? So we've just looked into their code. Many have written tests where throw try and catch blocks were added. That's not a good practice of doing it. Tests were having dependencies. It was invoking real databases and all, which was making the test cases slow. The main characteristics of unit test is they should be fast, they should be quick enough so that they quickly execute and we get immediate feedback. So we started conducting trainings for the team. That's how we began with. So initially, even before training them on TDD practice, we train them on how to write good unit tests. So art of unit testing, those sessions we conducted, how to write good unit test case. If you take example, how we can write a name of the test, we even train them how to do assertions, different type of ways of assertions. Once they become familiar and compatible with those techniques, we started training them with TDD practice. How exactly they should follow TDD by conducting workshops for them and by giving assignments and telling them work on this assignment based on TDD. Then we also train them on test doubles because if your unit testing is having any connection with any other thing, any dependency like database call or any web service call, any network call, then that is not a unit test, right? That is an integration test. So how you can isolate the dependency and still you can do the unit testing, that we conducted training for them by conducting test double session where we train them how to apply dummy, mocks, fakes, spies, all these things we explained them and we conducted a workshop for them. Then again, refactoring skills, because you have to continuously do refactoring when you are doing test-driven development to make sure your code is having proper design and proper coding standards. So by training them on solid principles, various clean code practices, we've made actually imbibe those refactoring skills into the team, which help them to come up with a good quality code and a good better design. So best practices also we followed while doing test-driven development, like map unit test to user stories. So every unit test should map to a user story. So if you see this unit test is mapping to that user story in which we have written those acceptance criteria. So to satisfy one of the acceptance criteria, this is one of the tests we are writing. So every test maps to the user story. Again, make it a readable test, right? So your unit test should be readable with a right validation. So it is just readable test having just right validation into it. Nothing more than that. No more extra gold plating, not too many lines of code, simple, short and sweet unit test cases. Now what happens, what's the benefit we get? This becomes documentation. Even if new joiner joins the team, just by reading the name of the test, the title of the test, the person will get idea what is the functionality behind this code, and they can understand the code and they can also get, you can say, confidence to touch that code, right, to add some enhancement to it. That's why these practices followed. Even if any unit test is failing in the build, we are not promoting the build to the next stage. Each and every unit test should pass, then only we will promote it for the build. Even if you are fixing any bugs, we told team you have to write the test first. If you have to make any changes in the code for the bug fixing, write a test for it and make sure after fixing the bug that test passes. Before fixing the bug, obviously test is going to fail. Then after adding the fix, a test should pass. That's how we did. And then even dependency handling, when you discover any dependency, even in the lateral stage, oh, I need this data from this service, then I should have a dependency. Suppose I need to send a service, I need a SMTP server for that. What if the server is not available? Then I should isolate the dependency. I should use some design patterns to inject that dependency in my unit testing. And what I'm expect, suppose service is not available, then I will inject service not available code, and then I will test my code. How my code should behave if service is not available. How my code should behave if the server is available. So that type of scenarios and tests we wrote first to handle even the dependencies which we are discovering. So these are the various best practices we followed which help us for the long run. So if you say how we matured, as we were not lucky always to get a greenfield project, otherwise we can directly start with the test-driven development. But we always have some legacy code. Legacy code is code having not unit tests or not having a good unit test. So we started refactoring code. To refactor the code, we should have a test to cover it. But even to write the test also, we require to refactor code because many times it happens, code is so ugly, it is so tightly coupled, it becomes so difficult to write even unit test for it. So it's always dilemma, refactor first or write a test first. So we have to many times refactor the code even to write the unit test cases. We started refactoring and we started writing unit test cases for the existing, the legacy code. And then for this, we followed pair programming practices because we are having many senior members in the team, even the junior members in the team who are not aware about the code. So the senior junior, that pairing helped so that junior also learn from them and they can work together so that everyone work on different type of code. And every time we do a different type of pairing so that team is having complete code ownership. It's not like this particular code belonged to only one developer. Everyone was owning the entire code. We also try to pair a developer and a tester. It really helped us because tester's mindset is right, want to break the code. Tester can always come up with different type of edge scenarios for any one particular thing. What if I get a null value into that? Then what outcome do you expect? Then we write a test for it. And the pairing of developer testers really help to come up with all type of possible test cases for our code, which help to improve the quality. And when we comfortably did that, we then started for TDD for every new piece of code we are writing. Any existing piece of code we are touching, we were doing refactoring and adding tests. But for every new code, we were first doing test cases, and then only we added the code. So we followed TDD practice for every new piece of code. And that's how eventually our entire code got covered. And refactoring was continuously done by following these clean code principles. So that's why we started doing this with the refactoring also. So refactoring was a continuous process throughout this. And as we could do refactoring well, because we were having the test already written for our code, which acted as a safety net for us. So this is how we applied BDD and TDD. So question is, should I go for what? I should go for TDD or BDD. So if you say what BDD exactly is, BDD is business facing where we are uncovering the requirements from the business perspective by closely collaborating with them. And what answer we get when we apply BDD? Am I building the right product for the customer which they have asked for? And when we do TDD, we mostly think from the technology or implementation perspective, how I'm implementing that piece of code. And we ask the question to us, am I building the product right? That means in a right way, with a right design and right coding principles. But goal for both the methodologies is to achieve the right product only. If you take in another perspective, if you look at it, PDD is outside in approach. What outside in means we start with the specification where we have specification by example, where we have the requirement and we write in Gherkin language given when then format with the example mapping, which we convert into step definition, which acts like automation test for us. Now to satisfy those tests, we write a code. And our code is based on this behavior. And this is outside in approach. But when you start with TDD, we are doing inside out approach. We start writing the test inside the code itself. If you are a Java developer, your test will be written in Java. If you are a .NET developer, your test will be written in .NET. So we start write the unit test cases, and to satisfy those unit test cases, we add the code, and eventually we satisfy all the scenarios and we satisfy entire specification. And final outcome is the same specification we achieve, which we have discussed in the beginning in the collaboration manner. So approach is different, but the outcome, or you can say the goal is same. Now the question is, should I go for any No. What we suggest as a best practice, it's not like TDD versus BDD, but it is TDD with BDD. So when we apply both of them together, we get the best outcome of it. So how it happened, we started exploring the requirements with BDD, which gave me all the specification, which is a common documentation for everyone. It which guides my development team, my testing team, then which drives my test-driven development, where now the developers are aware what they are going to build and why they are writing these test cases, because they know the big picture, they know the outcome which is expected. So based on that, they are writing the test, they are converting it into code, and then once they satisfy all the scenarios, obviously all the feature files getting satisfied and you are building the right product. So they are complementing each other in this way. But if you are finding it difficult to apply both the practices and you are not mature enough, it's always okay. You can do either of them. So if you want, you can begin with only BDD first. Once your team becomes mature enough, you can start with TDD, or you can start with the TDD first and then you can move towards BDD. It's okay for that, right? It depends on what type of team you have. If it is more business facing, and if you see there are more gaps in understanding requirements, better you start with BDD. And if you see there is course mail, too much of technical depth, better you start with TDD. And to have both together is like a win-win situation. So that's how we see they both are complementing each other. So what the purpose of applying this test first practice, just to achieve customer centricity, nothing more than that. So we want to be customer centric, we want to build the right product for the customer. That's why we say be customer centric. And if we say, right, re-engineering any organization internal processes is about adopting a customer centric agile culture. And to succeed in current market, only having practicing agile practices is not enough. You should have agile with DevOps with the right amount of automation in place with test first development practices, which will help us to achieve the customer centricity and to be ahead in the market. So I'll just summarize this and we can open for the question answer. Thanks everyone.
Thank, thank you very much, Mamta, for this wonderful session. You really summarized well how customer centricity can be achieved with how BDD and TDD go in hand in hand, not versus BDD and TDD. So thank you very much for this wonderful session. So we have some questions. One question is from SP, is asking, is there any technical limitation for Gherkin?
No, there is no technical limitation for Gherkin, and it's Gherkin is a programming language, right? So as I said, simply if you have that Gherkin plugin with you, if you install Cucumber also, you get the Gherkin along with it. And it is simple language, so there is no technical limitation for it. Even if you don't want to automate anything, right? Simply to gather the requirement also, you can start with Gherkin, gather requirements in the given main format, and you can begin your journey. There is no technical limitation for it.
Thank you. Then second question from Priyank, how to get started with the TDD? A classic answer I got is learn the coding first. What is your recommendation on this?
Obviously, if you have to do test-driven development, you should know the coding practices, right? You should have the basic programming language practices. And how we also started, as I mentioned there, you should know the clean code principle practices, design principle practices, various test patterns like solid principles, and then you should know the test doubles and all these things. Then you can succeed in it, because these skills are key. These skills are required for your TDD. Even if you have to write only unit testing, not TDD, then also these skills are required, because you have to write a better code, right? The expectation of following this TDD is building the product right. That's why you should have those skills. The skills are required.
Yeah. So I have one question, normally which are the participants, who can be a part of BDD activity, which are the participants who can be part of ATD activity, sorry, TDD activities?
Yeah. For BDD activity, as I said, it is a collaboration for entire team. So your product owner, BA, development team, and testing team. The development team actually means programmer and the testing team. Everyone, all should participate. If you are any usability experts at all, everyone from the Scrum team should participate in that. They should collaborate together so that everyone knows the big picture and they can ask questions from their side and scenarios can be evolved out of it. And TDD is mostly for test-driven development. that programmers who are writing this TDD, they should be part of this DDD practice, right? And even the testers. That's why in TDD also, both your programmers and testers should be participating. As I mentioned earlier, when we are pairing them, right? We pair the developer and tester also together so that they can come up with all possible scenarios and write a good unit test cases. So it is TDD also for the both programmers and testers also.
Okay.
Code testing.
Thank you.
Code is written by the programmer. Testers can help them to achieve to those tests.
So we have another question from Prashant. How does one understand various behavioral patterns?
This is through collaboration only because you're collaborating with business, right? With the product owner, where they are going to tell all the possible scenarios or all the possible behaviors about that thing. As well, breaking this requirement from the feature to the story. And from every story, you're going to come up with all the possible scenarios. And these scenarios are nothing else but the behaviors. So there only we discuss it with the collaboration by asking questions. Many times it happens, some of the scenarios or some of the patterns we are not able to uncover in that, which you may discover later. Then again, you can refine them. You can add new story or you can add new scenarios into that. And again, you can do craft in the same format and automate it. But if they are discovered in this collaboration technique only in the three amigos method, which we
Okay.
usually do in backlog refinement.
Yeah. So we do have a question from Chetan. Okay. What is your opinion on ATDD, which is acceptance test driven, and what is this framework is all about?
ATDD is acceptance test driven development, so which is similar to this BDD only. So here also we are doing what we are writing this acceptance criteria in the user stories, which we are automating and we are driving our development to satisfy those acceptance criteria. So I can say this BDD and ATDD complement each other. And nothing like you cannot say like ATDD and BDD are completely different. We are doing same over here, but ATDD, that's what we do. We write acceptance criteria in every user story in this same given in format with this technique, and to satisfy those, we write the users, we write the code. That's what called as acceptance test driven development.
Thank you.
And we can apply
So
BDD and TDD both for it.
okay. So another question from Prashant. Where would you not recommend BDD plus TDD?
So maybe if you are having any project where no customer interaction is required, maybe you are just simply doing a migrating from one simple product to another or some another version to it, purely technical thing where you know what is required to be done. Only thing is I have to do some changes in the code so that I can migrate from one version to another. That can be a simple example where you don't need to discuss the requirements because requirement is already done, code is already there, you are simply migrating. Then you can do it with test driven development only, where you can test if whatever it was giving the outcome, now if it is able to give it after migration also, then you can go with only TDD over there. But wherever you are doing BDD, I will suggest TDD will also follow. Okay, but you can have projects with only TDD without BDD, but my suggestion will be whenever you are doing BDD, then obviously you should have TDD.
I do have one question. We have mentioned one of the tool called Cucumber, right, for the BDD stuff. So what are the other tools we do have in ATD and the BDD? Sorry, the TDD.
TDD is like for Java, we are using JUnit, then we are having XUnit for .NET, even you are having this unit testing in Python also. But for this BDD purpose, for Java we use Cucumber, then for .NET we use SpecFlow. For Python you are using this is Behave. These are various tools available. There are many other tools also available, but
Okay.
based on the programming language, you have various tools available in the market.
Okay. I think we have covered all the questions, Mamta. I think thank you very much, Mamta, once again for answering all the questions and completing session on time. Much appreciated, and it was a very enlightening session, at least for me, and give a very clear idea what BDD and TDD go hand in hand to achieve the customer centricity overall. Once again, thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Mamta.